The story of the 761st Tank Battalion begins in 1942, at a time when the U.S. Army remained segregated. African American soldiers were often relegated to support roles such as supply or labor battalions. Few were given the chance to fight, and fewer still were entrusted with armored units. Yet under pressure from black leaders, the War Department reluctantly authorized the creation of an all-black tank battalion. The 761st was activated on April 1, 1942, at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. Its men came from across the United States, sharecroppers from the South, factory workers from northern cities, and students from colleges. Many volunteered in the hope of proving their worth in combat, determined to fight not only for victory over fascism abroad but also for dignity at home. Their nickname, the Black Panthers, came from their unit insignia, a snarling Black Panther's head. The motto beneath it read, "Come out fighting." It was more than a slogan, it was a statement of defiance against those who doubted their courage and skill. Training was rigorous. The men learned to operate and maintain the M4 Sherman tank, the workhorse of the U.S. Army. They drilled in gunnery, communications, and combined arms tactics. They endured long field exercises in Louisiana heat, often under the gaze of skeptical white officers who doubted that African Americans could handle the complexities of armored warfare. Segregation colored every aspect of their service. Black soldiers were barred from many facilities on base. They endured slurs and hostility, even from fellow Americans. Yet within the battalion, a fierce pride grew. They knew they would be judged not only as individuals but as representatives of their race. Success in combat would be more than personal honor, it would be a strike against prejudice. One of the battalion's most important figures was Lieutenant Jackie Robinson, later famous as the man who broke Major League Baseball's color barrier. Robinson never went overseas with the unit, but his clash with segregation while serving in the 761st foreshadowed the civil rights battles to come. In 1944, he refused to give up his seat to a white officer on a military bus in Texas, leading to a court-martial from which he was acquitted. His stand reflected the same spirit that defined the Black Panthers as a whole. Despite obstacles, the battalion excelled in training. In 1944, as the Allies prepared for the liberation of Europe, the 761st was declared combat ready. Its commander, Lieutenant Colonel Paul L. Bates, believed in his men and refused to tolerate discrimination within the unit. He fought for them to be deployed to the front lines, where they would finally have the chance to prove themselves. That chance came in the fall of 1944. General George S. Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army, requested the 761st to join his forces in France. Though Patton himself was no champion of racial equality, he reportedly expressed doubts about black soldiers. He also famously told the battalion upon their arrival, "Men, you are the first Negro tankers to ever fight in the American Army. I would never have asked for you if you weren't good. I have nothing but the best in my army. I don't care what color you are, so long as you go out there and kill those Kraut sons of bitches." The stage was set. The Black Panthers were about to enter combat in Europe, where they would carve their place in history with blood, fire, and steel. In October 1944, the 761st Tank Battalion arrived in France and was attached to General George S. Patton's Third Army. Their first assignment would be in the Lorraine region, where American forces were locked in a grinding struggle against German units fighting to hold the approaches to the German border. The battalion's first combat came near the town of Moyenvik on November 7, 1944. The terrain was muddy and broken, with fortified German positions concealed in woods and villages. The Black Panthers advanced in their M4 Shermans, their green crews about to face the deadly reality of tank warfare. Almost immediately, the Panthers encountered fierce resistance. German anti-tank guns, hidden in hedgerows and farmhouses, opened fire. Panzerfausts, German handheld rocket launchers, flashed from windows. The 761st lost several tanks in its opening engagements, but the crews did not falter. They pressed forward, blasting enemy positions and clearing the way for infantry. One veteran later recalled, "We knew everybody was watching us, waiting for us to fail. We couldn't let that happen. So no matter how bad it got, we just kept moving. Over the next several weeks, the battalion fought almost continuously. They engaged in bitter battles through the towns of Vic-sur-Seille, Morville-les-Vic, and Bears. In house-to-house fighting, tanks provided fire support, knocking down walls and silencing machine gun nests. At times, the Panthers fought without adequate infantry cover, leaving them vulnerable to ambushes. Crews learned to rotate their turrets constantly, scanning for threats from every direction. The Lorraine campaign was brutal, fought in cold rain and mud. Tanks bogged down in fields, engines strained in the muck, and visibility was poor. German defenders exploited every advantage, but the 761st proved themselves resilient. They adapted quickly, learning to work closely with infantry units that had initially doubted them. On November 9th, during a fierce battle at Morville-les-Vic, Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers distinguished himself. Despite his tank being hit and his leg badly wounded, Rivers refused evacuation. He commandeered another Sherman and continued leading his platoon. His determination inspired his men and earned him the nickname Superman among his comrades. The battalion's steady performance earned praise from higher command. Reports noted their aggressive spirit and effectiveness in combat, silencing doubters who had questioned the value of an all-black tank unit. Still, the cost was high. Dozens of Panthers were killed or wounded in their first month of fighting. As November turned to December, the 761st continued pressing eastward, pushing German forces back toward the Saar River. Just as they began to settle into the grinding rhythm of the campaign, however, a new crisis erupted, one that would test them as never before. In mid-December, Hitler launched a massive counteroffensive in the Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge. The Black Panthers would soon find themselves thrown into one of the most desperate battles of the war, where their courage and endurance would help blunt Germany's last great gamble. On December 16, 1944, Hitler launched his final great offensive in the West, the Ardennes counteroffensive, better known as the Battle of the Bulge. German forces smashed through the thinly held American lines in Belgium and Luxembourg, aiming to split the Allied armies and capture the port of Antwerp. The surprise attack threw the front into chaos, and every available unit was rushed in to stem the tide. The 761st Tank Battalion, already battle-hardened from the Lorraine campaign, was ordered north to support the desperate defense. Moving through snow and ice, the Black Panthers entered combat near the towns of Bastogne, Tillet, and Moorhead, where the German advance threatened to break through. For the men of the 761st, the Ardennes brought some of the hardest fighting of the war. Their Shermans, never a match for German Panthers and Tigers in one-on-one duels, had to rely on speed, maneuver, and teamwork. The bitter cold froze engines, jammed weapons, and made even basic maintenance a struggle. Snow camouflaged German infantry with Panzerfausts, who lurked in woods and villages. Yet the Panthers fought with relentless determination. In engagements around Tillet, they spearheaded attacks to clear German positions, blasting through houses and barns that concealed anti-tank teams. In one battle, they fought off a counterattack by German armor, maneuvering aggressively to flank enemy tanks and knock them out at close range. It was during the Bulge that Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers cemented his place as one of the battalion's greatest heroes. Still carrying the wounds he had suffered in Lorraine, Rivers again refused evacuation. At Singling, on November 19, just before the Bulge erupted, he had exposed his tank to draw fire from German anti-tank guns, allowing his platoon to advance. The action cost him his life. He was killed when his tank was hit directly. His gallantry was remembered long after the war, and decades later, he would be posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. The Black Panthers pressed on. In bitter fighting through December and January, they helped seal off German spearheads, holding key road junctions and supporting infantry counterattacks. They destroyed enemy strongpoints, fought off repeated ambushes, and endured the same savage winter conditions as the rest of Patton's army. Their performance during the Bulge silenced many critics. Patton himself praised their resilience, noting that they had slugged it out with the best the Germans had to offer and came out on top. For the men of the 761st, the Bulge was both a crucible and a vindication. They had proven not only that black soldiers could fight, but that they could fight as well as any unit in the army. When the German offensive finally collapsed in January 1945, the 761st was bloodied but unbroken. They had paid a heavy price in casualties but had played a vital role in blunting the Nazi offensive. Their reputation as fierce and dependable tankers was now firmly established. As the Allies pushed into Germany itself, the Black Panthers would continue to fight through the Siegfried Line, across the Rhine, and deep into Bavaria until the war's end. Their journey was not yet over, but already they had written their place in history. After the Battle of the Bulge, the 761st Tank Battalion pressed on with Patton's Third Army in the long advance into Germany. In February and March 1945, they fought through the Siegfried Line, Germany's formidable border defenses, supporting infantry assaults on pillboxes, bunkers, and fortified villages. The battalion's Shermans blasted through concrete and barbed wire, often under direct fire from German 88mm guns. Despite heavy resistance, the Panthers kept advancing. Their reputation had grown to the point that infantry commanders specifically requested their support, a dramatic reversal from the skepticism they had faced before combat. Where once they had been doubted, now they were trusted as hardened veterans. In March, the battalion crossed the Rhine River, a milestone that symbolized Germany's crumbling defenses. The Panthers pushed into central Germany, seizing towns and road junctions, often against scattered but fanatical opposition. Their tanks rolled through shell-shattered streets, sometimes greeted by civilians waving white flags, other times ambushed by last-ditch German units. It was during this final drive that the 761st encountered the horrors of the Holocaust. Near Gunskirchen, a subcamp of the Mauthausen concentration camp in Austria, they discovered emaciated survivors behind barbed wire. The sight shocked even hardened veterans. One tanker later recalled, "We thought we had seen everything war could show us. Then we saw those people, just skin and bones, living skeletons. We couldn't believe human beings could be treated that way." The liberation of the camp left a deep impression on the battalion. It underscored the larger meaning of the war they had fought, not just defeating an enemy, but ending a system of brutality and tyranny. By the time Germany surrendered in May 1945, the 761st Tank Battalion had fought for 183 consecutive days in combat. They had participated in 4 major campaigns: northern France, Rhineland, Ardennes-Alsace, and Central Europe. Their record included dozens of towns liberated, hundreds of enemy vehicles destroyed, and countless acts of individual heroism. The cost was heavy. Out of roughly 700 men who served, nearly 50 were killed in action and hundreds more wounded. Yet their sacrifice was not forgotten. The battalion received a Presidential Unit Citation for extraordinary heroism. Individual members earned over 300 Purple Hearts, 11 Silver Stars, and 1 Medal of Honor, awarded posthumously to Staff Sergeant Reuben Rivers in 1997, more than 50 years after his death. The Panthers' achievements carried symbolic weight far beyond the battlefield. In proving themselves under fire, they struck a blow against the racism that had kept African Americans in segregated units and limited roles. Their valor helped lay the groundwork for President Truman's order in 1948 to desegregate the U.S. Armed Forces. Today, the 761st Tank Battalion is remembered as a trailblazing unit that embodied both military excellence and the fight for equality. Their motto, "Come out fighting," still resonates as a declaration of courage and resilience. Memorials, books, and films have brought their story to new generations, ensuring their place in both military and civil rights history. The Black Panthers fought 2 battles, one against the Germans on the fields of Europe, and another against prejudice in their own country. They won both, though recognition for the second came more slowly. Their legacy endures as proof that heroism knows no color, only the courage of those willing to fight, sacrifice, and endure.